no longer under the law. Let's see what the New Testament actually says. I know what you've been told it said. I know what I might have told you 30 years ago what it said. Let's see what it actually says. All right, let's look at Matthew 23 and Luke 11:42. They say basically the same thing. Jesus' words about tithing are brief. There are only really two comments here from Jesus, but watch this. He said, and this is so interesting here. He said, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have committed the weightier, you have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith." Now watch this. "These ought you to have done, and not to leave the other undone." All right, so he's going in here, and Jesus is criticizing the Pharisees for neglecting the law about justice and mercy and faithfulness in their tithing. And again, for you tithing these things, but you're neglecting the others. What is he talking about, the others? The other laws. You're keeping this law, but you're neglecting the other laws. So to be sure, they are tithing. They absolutely were tithing. And Jesus says, you should keep that law of tithing, this, and this. But you shouldn't neglect the other laws about this, and this. All right, now watch this. So they are tithing, but they're tithing with wrong attitudes. No justice, no mercy, no faithfulness. Others is plural in the New American Standard Bible, and it refers to the Old Testament laws, not only to tithing law, but all of the laws in the Old Testament. You know what Jesus was saying? He says, I want you to be a good Jew. Don't neglect Jewish laws, because can't be a good Jew if you're Jewish person if you're neglecting Jewish laws. He says in verse 24, they're so busy, straining through water so they won't swallow a gnat, while at the same time they're swallowing a camel. What is he saying? They got wrong priorities. So he's not teaching on tithing here in verse 23. He's teaching on being a good Jewish person living under the law. And to be a good Jewish person living under the law, you can't do this part of the law and neglect the other parts of the law. Does everybody clearly see that? Many would say, well, see, Jesus is teaching on the law. And here's how I was taught. Jesus said you tithe in this, and you ought to. And they stop right there. See there, you ought to. Ought to what? See, you ought to tithe. It's out of context. The context is Jewish people living under the law, tithing according to the law, don't neglect the rest of the law. He's not talking to New Testament Christians. Jesus is operating as a prophet, fulfilling the law, and he is speaking to them as an Old Testament prophet, fulfilling the law, and he is saying to them, you should be tithing according to the law, but you shouldn't be neglecting the rest of the laws. Luke 11:42 says basically the same thing here now. Now, to be sure that they are tithing, let's look at something. Most people will tell you Jesus is advocating tithing for the new way that he's announcing in the gospel. He is not. He is just teaching as an Old Testament prophet according to the Jewish law. Now, there's another place we see him talking about tithing. Luke 18 and verse 12. All right, now check this out. This is so serious here. Jesus mentioned tithing in Luke chapter 18 and 12, where a Pharisee was boasting. You remember the story about the Pharisee and the publican? Where the Pharisee was boasting, he said, I fast twice a week and I give 10th of all I get. And again, Jesus does not speak against tithing, but challenges the Pharisee where his self-righteousness is concerned. Let me back up here. Look at this in the NLT, and let's back up to verse 11, Luke 18:11, and read through this. There's a lot going on here. Luke 18:11, and the Pharisee stood by himself and he prayed this prayer. I thank you, God, that I am not like other people. All right, you're going to see the Pharisee is self-righteous. I'm not a cheater, a sinner, an adulterer, and I'm certainly not like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give you 1/10 of my income. You ever met people in church today that they tell you, I'm a tither? And what does that mean? That means you're still under the law, huh? I give you 1/10 of my income, Lord. Come on. But the tax collector stood at the distance and dared not even lift his eyes to heaven as he prayed. Instead, he beat his chest in sorrow, saying, Oh God, be merciful to me, for I am a sinner. And verse 14 tells you, I tell you, this sinner, not the Pharisee, return home justified before God. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Do you see Jesus teaching on tithing here? He was rebuking this guy for his self-righteousness. Self-righteous people are people who strive to get right with God. And religion and self-righteousness are the same thing. Religion is the same as self-righteousness. It's man's pursuit to make himself right before God. Religion and self-righteousness operates through guilt and fear. Guilt and fear. So when you're religious, there's some guilt and some fear. Dependency on guilt is what keeps religion alive and well.